Could the crash of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 and Russia's suspected involvement trigger more sanctions against Russia by the Obama administration? WSJ's news editor William Mauldin has been following this part of the story closely, and he joins us from Washington. William, thanks for being there. It was only
thanks for having me. Yeah,
it's only a day ago that we heard about the latest round of sanctions yesterday morning. What do you think the likelihood of even more is?
Well, that's right, and I had a Senate aide who follows sanctions very closely tell me on Wednesday, when the U.S. put out some financial sanctions, relatively small, but against four of Russia's biggest companies, that this would probably sap the desire on Capitol Hill for more sanctions until after the August recess. Now, of course, that's changed. We've had something that brings world attention, spotlighting, the danger of this separatist fighting. While it's too early to conclusively blame the separatists or Russian-supplied missiles, it certainly is looking that way from the U.S. side, and it's certainly U.S. is quite willing to blame Russia for what's happening here. So it looks like the U.S. side will come under pressure to toughen sanctions even further. Today, Representative Peter King just said the U.S. should sanction Russia's Aeroflot, Russia's own airline, as a signal that we hold Russia responsible for this trouble in the skies. And
William, to what extent is evidence needed in this sort of thing for extra sanctions to be put in? Is that something that Congress will be saying, oh yeah, or the administration will say, we actually need evidence before we do this, or it's just like, hey, you've been bad enough anyway without this, we're going to go further anyway?
Well, the president's very flexible right now. The president and the secretary of the Treasury have executive orders out, that very clearly give them wide latitude to impose sanctions on anybody providing support to the Russian government, separatist movements, the Crimea. So it's not a problem. It's just a question of how they want to calculate and when they want to use it. Of course, Congress may be pushing to give more authority to the U.S. to give sanctions. On the European side, though, they've already approved sanctions on Wednesday, and they have until the end of the month to decide what those first kind of corporate sanctions will be against Russia. So they're unlikely to pull punches if the investigation keeps going in the same way that it's going now.
Now, for sanctions to work, they have to be fairly specific and really focused. I've heard it said that many times sanctions are sometimes just for a domestic audience internally. Say, hey, look, we're doing something. Can these be expected to actually work and get Russia to stop backing the militants in eastern Ukraine?
Well, there's great debate about that, Simon, and the business community says no, they don't work. In history, they've rarely, if ever, worked. And it's impossible to change the calculations of President Vladimir Putin and his lieutenants around the Kremlin. But the Obama administration puts great faith in sanctions. They think they worked in Iran. So the Obama administration looks eager to do this. The business community would rather a combination of military intervention, tough diplomacy, troop deployments, and a sort of a cocktail of steps to take against what they consider to be a real threat. But sanctions is something that the Europeans are increasingly on board with. Chancellor Merkel has been talking tougher on sanctions, though Germany trades so much with Russia. And today she seemed to say we should wait, let things take their course, look into the investigation a little bit, engage with President Putin. But certainly with so many European lives lost on this jet, in a tragedy that unfolded in European skies, there'll be a lot of pressure in Brussels to step it up. And the U.S. will be only too happy to push further in that direction.
I'm sure there will be a lot of pressure. Thank you very much, William Mauldin of the Wall Street Journal.